Welcome to the Sounders FC Scouting Report. I'm Matt Gash. He's Arlo White, the voice of the Sounders. The Sounders face the Houston Dynamo this week at Qwest Field. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, and this isn't the same Houston Dynamo team we're used to, is it?
No, they're accustomed to winning trophies, aren't they? Winning MLS Cups as they did, and we've got some players in our team, Iani, Jakwa, who were part of those successful years, but they're having a tough time. Dominic Kinnear and his boys, 7th in the Western Conference, a record of 5-8-3. They're unaccustomed to this sort of lack of success, I suppose. They're 5 points behind the Sounders at the moment, but in this season of seasons, they're only 3 points off the playoffs. I think they're in a position that the Sounders were a few weeks ago, and before we played FC Dallas at home, albeit we got a draw that night. I think personally that's where the recovery started. That's where the attitude shift where it became first evident. And they're in that position. They need to start winning and getting points on the board because they haven't won in 8. So it's going to be a real battle.
Mm-hmm. And like the Sounders, they're playing with a lot of the without a lot of the key pieces they had last year, right?
Yeah, Stuart Holden not there, who's gone to Bolton in the EPL. Ricardo Clark's gone to Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany, and that's key. When you lose 2 important players out the centre of midfield like that, that's your engine room. That's where your creativity comes from. That's where your defensive screen comes from. You lose them both basically at the same time, and you're going to be in a bit of trouble.
Much like the Sounders did with Brad Evans and Ozzie Alonso at one point.
Very similar.
Also, you know, there are also some positives with Houston, some things to watch out for. Brian Ching, someone we're obviously very familiar with, being one of them.
Now, and I know this team is familiar to you and to Sounders fans that we played them 5 times last year. The game at Qwest Field was my only call of last year, so this is going to be a happy reunion really with the Houston Dynamo. But that day, and I was a little bit disappointed at the time, Brian Ching wasn't playing. He was injured, but he's having a very good season this year, having been injured early in the season, which probably did for his World Cup chances. Right. But I think Bob Bradley, looking back, probably feels that someone like a Brian Ching could have played a role in South Africa. Remember that US strikers didn't score. Right. This is a great example of what Brian can do. This is against Toronto, BMO Field, earlier in the season. Look at this, a corner. Sanyang is the centre-back, a young fella, but look at Ching. Look at the battle that's going on between the two of them. And who wins it? Brian Ching. Heads it into the corner. Goalkeeper doesn't even move. We get a better view of it here. Look at this. Look at what Sanyang's trying here. Little headbutt there. Yeah. Did you see that? Ching says, oh yeah, look at this, but I'm not going to stop playing. Darts into a bit of space. Sanyang is now completely confused. He doesn't know where Ching is, and he heads it into the corner. So where a lot of players, if there's a bit of argy-bargy in the penalty area, will go down, arms flailing.
Sorry, a bit of what?
Bit of argy-bargy, bit of handbags, bit of violence.
We're learning, expanding our vocabularies here on the
Bit of mindless violence in the penalty area.
Right, I can deal with that.
They often go down and try and win a penalty, but Ching actually used that as a decoy in the end. So he's wily, he's a veteran, and he got the better of, I don't know whether he's a rookie or certainly a young player there. Intelligent player as well. Look at this, Houston against the New York Red Bulls last week at Robertson Stadium. Nice bit of build-up in. Look at Ching in the right-hand side of your picture, into the penalty area, so he takes up a great position. Really good move, flicks it inside. Tim Ream, our old mate we've been talking about all season, gives away a penalty. It's scored by Brad Davis, which we'll show you in a few moments' time. But that's a good example of what Ching can do as well. Drift into space between the fullback and the centre-back, and when he gets the ball, he can be effective as well.
I know we're familiar with this highlight.
Cover your eyes. Look away. But this is a perfect example, again, of what he can do. Western Conference semi-final, second leg. You don't need me to set this up for you. Late in the game, in extra time, in November last year, cross comes over. He doesn't get the first ball, but stays alert, look. 8 yards out. What a fantastic swivel volley that is. Casey Kelly with no chance. That ended the Sounders' inaugural season. Houston marched on in the playoffs. They didn't make it to the MLS Cup final, but that's what Brian Ching can do. He's a multifaceted, multi-skilled player, and he could be very, very dangerous to the Sounders on Sunday.
And as dangerous as he was in that play for Houston, another player that was dangerous for them all through last season, Brad Davis, an all-star player for that team.
Yeah, absolutely, and not to hark too much about Houston goals against Seattle, because the Sounders won 2 of those 5 games last season. There was a draw in MLS, there was a draw in the playoffs, and a defeat in the playoffs. But this is at Qwest Field. Now, this is the game that I was at last year, and eventually the Sounders won it. But here's Brad Davis, edge of the penalty area, loitering, waiting for the ball to be rolled back to him. Great left foot. I mean, he's got such a lovely, sweet left foot. I know Ziggy Schmidt doesn't fear Brad Davis, respects him. I think is the best way to put it. He's an all-star, played against Manchester United the other week. Normally very good from the penalty spot. This is what he normally does against the Red Bulls. 1-0 down last week. Sends Kandul the wrong way, call as you like. Later on in the game, with the penalty that Ching won that we showed you, look at this. All poised out the window. It's training camp here at VMAC. That was like a special teams play with the old field goal kicker kicking it over for 3 points. Very unlike Brad Davis, normally dead-eyed straight from penalties. You can rely on him from corners and free kicks. I wouldn't expect him to make that mistake again from the spot, but he has to be certainly watched on the edge of the penalty area, on corners and on free kicks as well, because he's got a lovely left foot.
Right. Earlier in the scouting report, you mentioned the departures of Stuart Holden and Ricardo Clark for center midfield. Another player that they've lost and has been a key component for them, Jeff Cameron, was an all-star center back for them in previous years. They moved him up into the midfield, but they also they've struggled to replace his what he added to the team at centre back.
A lot of it's been centre back by committee, really. Right. Bobby Boswell last season actually only missed one regular season game. It was the one at Quest Field. He returns, we think, from suspension for Sunday night, but it's been a revolving door sort of policy at centre back. Robinson's played quite a bit there, the veteran, and Lavelle Palmer as well. And we'll show you this clip from the Red Bulls game last week. Lavelle Palmer, who is almost like the like-for-like replacement for Ricardo Clark, was sent off in this game. So Houston are down to 10 men here. But I just want to show you an example of what that does and a bit of defensive uncertainty. Look at Thierry Henry. It was his Major League Soccer debut. We'll just stop it there. Henry knows now that he's got space to move into because there's no defensive midfielder snapping at his heels. And this is Freddie Montero territory. This is where Freddie can be picking up the ball at Quest Field on Sunday night. So we'll play it on. Henry turns and we'll stop it there again. Look, the centre back, I think this is Robinson here, who's been drawn out. And that creates chaos because then you've got runners beyond. And you've got fullbacks who now don't know whether to step up to play them offside. Essentially, they are onside, and we'll play it on. And there's a lovely scissors move between the two strikers. We'll stop it there. Great move by Dane Richards and by Angel, the second designated player. They've since added a third, New York, and we'll play it on and see the finish. Angel's second goal of the game, his 11th of the season. He's only one behind Edson Buddle. But it's just an example there of confusion, albeit caused possibly by being down to 10 men, but confusion in the centre of defence for Houston. Bobby Boswell will add more stability to them, but still it's something that the Sounders might be able to play on, particularly with Blaise Kufo up front and the intelligence that he shows.
And obviously we had a lot of familiarity with them last year. This is the first time we've played them since the playoffs. This is a big game for both teams, though, isn't it?
Well, I think it is. And I think, you know, for the Sounders, the games just keep getting bigger and bigger. But if there is a chance, if the results go the Sounders' way this weekend, they could be third in the Western Conference by Sunday night. And they could be fourth in the playoffs out of 8. And what a difference 3 or 4 weeks makes, because suddenly the Sounders are right in amongst it then, albeit they'll have played a few more games than 1 or 2 of the other teams, but they will have the points on the board. For Houston, they haven't won in 8 games. This to me feels like a game a few weeks ago that the Sounders might have had, as I mentioned, against FC Dallas. And that worries me. That does concern me that they might come out. This might be the last chance saloon for them to create a playoff charge. They're only 3 points off, but not playing particularly well. We're going to see a desperate, gutsy team come out on Sunday night, and that's what the Sounders have to be aware of.
And when teams come into Quest Field and they're desperate, the last thing they want is a voiceful Sounders FC crowd, and I expect that as well on Sunday night. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff from Quest Field. You can hear Arlo White on the call on 97.3 Cairo FM, as well as on TV on Kong 616. For SoundersFC.com, this has been your Scouting Report. I'm Matt Gash. He's Arlo White. We'll see you at the stadium.